Good evening. I'm Dr. Charles Flippin, Residency Program Director for the UCLA Adult Neurology Training Program, and I want to welcome you all to our first Residency Program Open House. This is a new experience for all of us as we find ourselves in a very unique environment. COVID-19 has caused a sea change in the process of residency interview and, on your part, selecting where you want to do your neurology training. We hope that this evening we are able to give you some insight into who we are as a training program and as a Department of Neurology. We have a great panel of physicians here in our residency program and also residents who are currently in our program. I want you to take advantage of this opportunity to really ask anything, everything you want to know about UCLA neurology. Now I'm going to ask my department chair, my boss, Tom Carmichael, to say a few words of welcome and to start our evening off. Tom?
There we go. Thank you, Charles. It's a pleasure to have everyone join us virtually. We enjoy it much more in person, of course, and this is going to be a new experience, but it's a pleasure to welcome everyone. This is just a brief kind of high-level overview of the department, particularly geared towards the perspective of a resident. What would you see? What would you be interested in? So UCLA Neurology is a large and dynamic place. We have 120 faculty, so one of the larger programs in the country. We have virtually every subspecialty program. We have 18 subspecialty programs and a tight integration in those programs between the basic science, the clinical translation and clinical science, and clinical care. So each program is its own unit of integrated kind of academia. We have been in the top tier of NIH funding since the mid-90s and continue to be. So this creates a depth and a set of resources that really provide a lot of opportunities for residents and really all of our trainees. The faculty are well funded. There are a lot of interesting clinical and basic science research projects. So it's a vibrant place from that perspective. In terms of clinical care, it's also a dynamic place. And so we have 3 sites, as you'll hear, 3 hospital sites with outpatient and inpatient care. We have a range of experiences from very high-level tertiary quaternary care down to community and safety net care, which is so important to learn about, and the VA and its unique patient population. We have large outpatient clinics at each of these sites. In fact, we have close to 20,000 patient contacts in our Westwood clinic alone. As a whole, UCLA sees 60% of all the patients in the UC system among the 5 medical schools. So we're already a big place, and UCLA Neurology is a large part of that. In terms of education, that's one of the most fun things to talk about, and you'll hear a lot about that. It's a very bottom-up program. And so the residents, as you'll learn, really drive a lot of the energy, the change, the engagement that we feel here at UCLA. You'll hear about the general neurology education you get, but also the specific tracks and the ability to specialize that you might be interested in. Some of those tracks are really producing quite dramatic results. We have Raj Mazumdar, who's a global health person who spent time in northern Uganda studying an epilepsy syndrome, who just came on faculty, largely through his work as a fellow and a resident here. And we've had 5 other fellows come through our R25 program that joined in the last 2 years, our faculty. So really a rich source for us in many ways. And finally, in closing, the dynamism is really a reflection of Los Angeles itself, 3rd largest city, one of the most diverse places on earth, really, and a real driver of the energy. The climate helps with that in terms of how we see our program and see ourselves. So that's all I'll do in my short stint, and I'll turn it back over to Charles and to the rest of the program. Thank you.
Thank you, Tom. And I'm going to share my screen here. So now I want to, let's get back to where I'm supposed to be. Give you a little presentation about our residency training program. I don't want to do death by PowerPoint and then have you fall asleep. I know that it's dinner time or past dinner time on the East Coast, so we'll hopefully give you a good view. Again, I want to welcome you. I like this picture, and these are actual former UCLA residents. And the reason why I like this picture is because everyone's smiling and everyone's looking up. And I think that that's how we approach every day here at UCLA. It's a great learning environment. It doesn't hurt rather to have the Southern California sun kiss your face every morning. And everyone is motivated to learn and serve. So again, we're among the top 5 hospitals in the nation, according to U.S. News and World Report, a lofty position that we're very proud of, but we work hard to maintain. We have outstanding clinical training because of the diversity of our training sites. As Tom indicated, we have a large faculty, and by virtue of being a large state institution, we have a lot of research opportunities, and we have special interest tracks within the residency program. So again, we've got one of the larger departments in the country and in the world. Many world-renowned clinical neurologists and basic neuroscientists. Neuroscience is the largest scientific discipline on the UCLA campus. It touches every part of the undergraduate and the medical enterprise. Again, we have over 120 full-time faculty, and something that I think makes us unique is that we have over 50 voluntary faculty. These are community neurologists who help staff resident continuity clinics and give a different perspective on care outside of the ivory tower view of rendering care to the public. Again, this is the education leadership. You heard from Dr. Carmichael. I'm the vice chair of education for the department, along with being program director. I've been a program director for about 8 years and am a headache medicine subspecialist. You will meet Doctors Drienne Keener, who is associate program director and is a movement disorder subspecialist, and also Dr. Drvette Bordelon, our other associate program director, and also the neurology medical student clerkship director. She's also a movement disorders subspecialist. I don't know what that says about movement disorders, but they do like to teach. So, and that goes across the board for their subspecialty. You'll also interact with our chief residents this evening, Dr. Roy in particular. Catherine Fu will be available for questions, and also Tim Ryan will also be on. They are the glue. They push the faculty to do more. They represent their colleagues to the faculty and the program administration and do an excellent job of that. But they're also great caretakers of their colleagues and each other. They are exemplars of what we look for in our residents and are great leaders. And then the backbone of the education apparatus are our education staff. Rebecca Bernstein is the residency program coordinator. Jennifer Martinez is also the clerkship coordinator for the medical students, and she also is coordinator for several of our ACGME fellowship programs. This is a team effort. Nothing happens in this program without the efforts of everyone that you've seen so far. And also, last but not least, all of our residents. It's really the people that make the program. The buildings, they come and go. The weather changes. It's the people that make everything happen. As Tom mentioned, we have a diversity of training sites. We have the main training site is the Reagan UCLA Medical Center. But then we also have the West Los Angeles VA Medical Center, which is about, depending on traffic, can be 10 minutes or 20 minutes away from Westwood. Olive View UCLA Medical Center, which is about 25 miles to the north of Westwood. The Sepulveda VA Medical Center, which is an outpatient multi-specialty center in the VA system. That's about 5 minutes away from Olive View, and again, about 20 minutes away from Westwood. The Santa Monica UCLA Medical Center is not a regular part of the rotation for our residents, but it is available for a elective experience. There is a private practice model group of faculty that service that hospital and provide the neurohospitalist coverage along with outpatient care for that patient population. And that's an opportunity for residents to rotate and see how a private practice works in neurology. So on this map, you see the Reagan Hospital toward the sort of mid-left portion of the diagram. And that's the hub of our clinical activities. Along the bottom, you see at the bottom left with the clock tower, that's where our main outpatient operation occurs. The neurological services, which you see on the picture immediately to the right of it. Then to the right of that picture is the entrance to Reed Neurological Research Building, which sits right across the street from the Reagan Hospital, which is the main building for our academic offices and faculty offices. And then to the right of that is the Ganda Neuroscience Research Building complex, where most faculty have their research, their basic research laboratories. The Reagan UCLA Medical Center and Hospital, IMPay designed hospital. It is a wonder of medical technology. Pretty much anything that you can think of for monitoring a patient exists in this facility. We have a large 26-bed neuro ICU, which is very active. We have a stroke service and a general neurology inpatient service, and also provide consultative services on both of those stroke and general services. So just a glimpse of what goes on an average week in neurology. And as you can see, every day has some conference of some subspecialty of neurology. Our main education day is Wednesday. So Wednesday mornings, there's a stroke conference at UCLA at 8 a.m., followed by neurology grand rounds. And then the resident core didactic curriculum in Westwood, and then a noon outpatient conference where residents usually get together and have lunch. But really, depending on your interest, you can find a conference that tickles your fancy anywhere along the way during the week. And because of the structure of the schedule, it is possible with the elective time that residents have to actually go to these things and learn as much as you possibly can. So we are categorized by the National Residency Match Program as an advanced program. And that is, we do not typically offer a PGY1 year, though we are changing that. And I was just on a panel before our open house, and it seems that our current state is a trend that seems to be across the country, in that we offer PGY1 positions, and this year we're offering 6 positions. And then the other 3 positions that we would match for neurology, those people would be free to do their internship at another institution. This is the preliminary year schedule, and this internship occurs at the West LA VA, again, which is about 5 or 10 minutes away from Westwood. And that's the schedule that internship has. As you can see, you get everything that you need to get a firm foundation in internal medicine, which is necessary to be an excellent clinical neurologist. You can spend or will spend 4 weeks on the neurology inpatient service over at the West LA VA. As I mentioned, there's a lot of elective time, but it comes in the 2nd and 3rd years of your neurology training here. The PGY2 year is pretty much an inpatient year. Core inpatient rotations at Reagan and stroke and general neurology. You rotate at the West LA VA on its inpatient service and also at Olive UCLA Medical Center. The subspecialty clinic rotation is part of our new 4+2 PGY2 schedule. So you do 4 weeks of inpatient neurology, and then you have 2 solid weeks of outpatient neurology where you are out of the call pool and you get to concentrate solely on outpatient neurology. So far, this is our first year in instituting this schedule change. So far, the PGY2 seem a lot happier than in prior years. And I think that it's a great opportunity to expand learning about subspecialties. You rotate through subspecialty clinics during those 2 weeks, along with having your regular continuity clinic, which extends throughout the entire 3 years of the residency. In PGY3 year, that's when you start senioring. So you're supervising resident on stroke and at the West LA VA. You'll start with doing child neurology. There's a 3-month requirement for child neurology to complete an adult neurology residency. And there's an Olive View outpatient rotation. And you have 4 months of elective. As a senior, PGY4, you will also supervise at Reagan Hospital, West LA VA, and at Olive View. Complete your child neurology requirements, have a psychiatry rotation, and then 5 months of elective. A little bit about the benefits of the residence. We do offer a $12,000 a year stipend for housing. We recognize that Los Angeles is an expensive place to live, and so aside from your regular wages, you are given $1,000 extra each month for housing. $3,000 a year meal benefit to use at the UCLA cafeterias, both at Westwood and Santa Monica. You get license reimbursement and license renewal and USMLE Step 3 fees reimbursed. Multiple leaves for family medical, pregnancy, disability, 4 weeks paid paternal leave over the course of 12 months, 12 days of sick leave with a 1-year carryover, 4 weeks of vacation, and 3 holidays. Everyone gets an education fund, either $500 for interns, $1,000 for PGY2s. The institution provides personalized white coats and UCLA logo jackets. So lots of benefits there. We have multiple levels of mentoring that goes throughout the course of your residency. Everyone is assigned a big brother or big sister. The chief residents, as I said, they take very good care of their colleagues and look out for their interests. Everyone is assigned a faculty mentor that initially in the first year, that assignment is made for you, and then you have the option of switching based on your academic interest to a different mentor or just adding an additional mentor. You can never have too much mentoring. You can have a faculty career advisor, and then I see myself as a mentor, but also a sponsor for all of the residents. And so if there's anything that you want, anyone that you need to talk to around the country, we can make it happen. We mentioned about the special interest tracks. Our resident research track is funded by an R25 NIH training grant. We've been fortunate to be the sole neurology program in the country to have this independent of psychiatry and neurosurgery. On average, we will have 2 grantees per class. This year, we have 2 And then the department is actually sponsoring a third resident who has interest in a clinician scientist career. And this is an option that is available. So it's not just the R25, but for those who have demonstrated the interest and have a clear sense of what they want to do within science, there's an opportunity there. Our clinician educator track can be participated in PGY 3 or 4 years. That's training comes through our the medical school's medical education fellowship program. You are formally apply to that and are accepted. We typically ask that people declare for that at the end of their PGY2 year so that they can go through that year-long didactic course that trains you on medical education research techniques and theories, also about adult learning theory, so that you can enter into a project for your PGY4 year. A new track that started this past year, and unfortunately COVID hit, and so that has truncated our plans for it, but an advocacy track. And that is focusing on the interface between public policy and clinical care. Participants in that track will participate in the Neurology on the Hill, which is usually in February every year, have some contact and exposure with the California Neurological Society, which is our advocacy, state advocacy arm, and then working with local representatives and community advocacy groups. Our current advocacy track participant, Shuvro Roy, has been in contact with a South Los Angeles community group that's advocating for improved stroke care to underserved communities. We're always in evolution. So the way things are this year, something new is going to be happening next year. We have a rededication to resident wellness. Last year, we instituted class wellness days. The activities that we can do right now are a bit truncated due to COVID, but we're figuring out how we can best do this in a virtual space. We have a diversity and training program where underrepresented groups and minority members can apply for a sponsored clinical elective as a senior medical student. Obviously, that's not in person this year, and so we've had to retool that program. But once we are out of pandemic, that will be reinstituted, and that covers a month's worth of lodgings and food and air travel to UCLA from wherever the student is coming from. It's a competitive process that requires an application. We have a rededication to patient safety because I think across institutions, if you go across the country, you'll find that patient safety seems to be relegated to nursing, and we as physicians are not as active. We want to make certain that our graduates understand our role in ensuring the safety of our patients and safe systems for all patients. So we're doing very formal training in tracing SOFI or event reports that are put forth by our house staff. And we mentioned the global health track. These photos here are the gentleman sitting in the middle of that group of smiling faces is Sam Ahn, one of our recent graduates who participated in a partnership we have with the Institute of Neurology and Neurosurgery of Mexico in Mexico City. They hosted him for a month, and we were to host 2 of their residents at our institution in May and June of this year, but unfortunately, due to the pandemic, that was put on hold. We also hold a quarterly case conference by a teleconference with the residents in Mexico City so that we can learn from them and they learn from us about different approaches in patient care and also about the differences in systems of delivery of care. I think we feel that it's important that our residents have an understanding of the country of origin of so many of our patients that we treat here in Los Angeles. This is just an example of the places that our residents have traveled, aside from Mexico City, Great Britain, Krakow, Poland, Bangkok, Sri Lanka, Zambia, and Uganda, as Dr. Carmichael had mentioned earlier. And it's not all work, there is some play. We do manage to have fun while we're learning. And so these are just some examples of things that we've done. Every year, the senior residents go to the American Academy of Neurology annual meeting. We have an annual resident retreat at the UCLA Lake Arrowhead Conference Center. It's a beautiful location up in the mountains above Los Angeles. You can even see snow there on some years. It's not that we seek it, but sometimes it's there. And then beyond residency. So this is an example of the fellowships that are available here at UCLA. If last year's class is indicative, all but one of them stayed within our system for fellowship. So I think they like it here. And then at the bottom are the institutions. So traveling out to Southern California to do your residency training doesn't mean that you can't go back east if that's where your family is. So a training in neurology at UCLA has legs. You can pretty much go where you want for your fellowship program. Fortunately for us, a lot of our residents like to stick around. And then you become alumni. And our alumni are all over the country and necessarily all over the world. And these are all graduates of the program since I've been on faculty here at UCLA. As you can see, there is no standard UCLA resident. We have a diversity of people in our program, and we always have. And this goes back, the first resident from an underrepresented group in our department was back in the 1970s. So our emphasis on diversity is not something new. It's something that's been part of our department for a very, very long time. And we're only strengthening that resolve in light of the recent unrest in the country. And we feel it's a responsibility that we serve all populations of California, and that our residents have the awareness and the cultural competence to be effective providers to everyone. And of course, we're in Los Angeles, where you can ski and surf in the same day. Really, this is a vibrant city. You pretty much have the world at your doorstep. Not only that, but it is a large urban setting, but it does not take long to get back to nature, whether that's the beach or whether that's the mountains. You can find it all here. And so with that, I would like to turn things over to my esteemed colleagues, my true right hands, Doctors Drienne Keener and Drvette Bordelon, our Associate Program Directors.
All right, I've been furiously typing in the Q&A, so thank you all for your questions, and we'll continue to try to address those. I'm Drienne Keener, as Dr. Flippin said. I'm a movement disorders neurologist here at UCLA and one of the associate program directors. I'm also an alumna of the program, so I did my residency and fellowship here at UCLA. And I always like to say the thing that drew me to this program when I was a medical student applying to neurology residency is the same thing that's kept me here all these years, and that's really the people here at UCLA that make up the program. From the faculty to the staff, to the residents and even medical students, we have a very welcoming and open-minded and inquisitive environment where you can really thrive and bring your own strengths, your own creativity, and your own interests to flourish. So I think that really is the bottom line for me. Aside from taking care of patients with movement disorders, both here at the main UCLA campus, I also work at the West Los Angeles VA, where we have a Parkinson's Center of Excellence and where I also attend on the inpatient service. And my interest in medical education really stemmed from my experiences even prior to medical school as an undergrad, where I have sort of a secondary interest in literature. And when I got to residency and was chief resident here in our program, I really found for myself that turning to my interest in the humanities was a great way to support my own wellness. And I found a real passion for bringing that to our residency program. And so things that I have worked on specifically as part of our residency program leadership have been focused on resident mentorship, where we've sort of overhauled our resident mentor program. And the residents can hopefully speak more to that, but every incoming resident is not only paired with a faculty mentor, ideally in their area of interest if possible, but also given a resident family. So where all years of residents are grouped together for peer mentorship and support. And we often find and encourage that our residents seek out additional mentors to fill different needs as they pursue different aspects of their career. The other really important part of our program that I'm focused on is our wellness program, and that's taken several forms over the year, from systemic changes in our rotation structure, as Dr. Flippin mentioned, with the new 4+2 block schedule, to more sort of day-to-day things like providing rides home when you're fatigued and providing money for meals when you're off-site. In addition to bringing some humanities and creativity to the resident didactic curriculum that I enjoy. So I'm thrilled to have you all here tonight and look forward to a unique but exciting recruitment season. And with that, I'll get back to the Q&A, so keep submitting your questions, and I'll turn it over to Dr. Bordelon.
Thank you, Adrienne, and welcome everybody again. I'm Drvette Bordelon. I'll be very brief. I want to say I'm from New Orleans. I noticed on the registrants there's some folks out there who are from Louisiana. I started there, but I moved up Northeast for a lot of my training. So I was University of Pennsylvania for my MD, PhD, and then went up to Partners Residency Program, Columbia for Fellowship, and then made it out here 15 to 16 years ago now. And I have to say that I have loved every day that we've been here and really enjoy this. I am new to the program leadership panel here, so I've only been an APD for a few months. But the reason that I was really excited about this position is because the residents here are just incredible, and I have loved working with all of them that I have worked with over the 15 years, and it gets better all of the time. And to watch them grow during the course of these 3 years and become amazing neurologists, amazing neuroscientists, contributing to the community in many ways is one of the highlights of being in neurology. And so you'll hear from them and their side of the story and what makes UCLA neurology so special for them. And I have to say, in this year that I've come on, just in the past few months, it's been a challenging year. As you've all have been living through, from the COVID pandemic to social unrest, and the way that our department and our leadership at UCLA and within neurology has galvanized in this setting and under these circumstances has been truly inspirational. And you'll hear more of this over time. So what we can provide to you tonight, but also we're planning other events throughout the interview season. So you get pictures of what this program can offer and how our residents work together as family and part of this UCLA neurology family. We really want to provide that because there are many opportunities for the tracks that you've seen here, for community outreach, which again is becoming more and more important, and what many of our residents have done throughout their time and throughout the years at some of the local community clinics. So we will address just a couple of questions for our portion, and then we'll move to the resident portion because you'll hear a lot more information about that. And Adrienne, was there a particular question that you wanted to address in the live session that hasn't been covered already through Dr. Flippin's presentation?
Sure. So I think maybe this was partly covered, but we'll start with this question, which is what opportunities are there for community outreach and engagement with underserved populations?
So I can take that.
Yeah, I think that would be good.
So, so I am also of all the hats I wear. I'm also the chair of the Department Equity, Diversity, and Inclusion Committee. Uh, our interface with underserved communities is mostly through Olive View UCLA Medical Center, and that's where you get the clinical experience with taking care of patients who are under-resourced. As far as community engagement, there's a partnership that I have helped forge with the medical school. It's a health careers summit, which is a partnership with 100 Black men in Los Angeles. And residents can participate in that on an annual basis. There is a program, the Saturday Science Academy at Martin Luther King Drew High School. That is a K through 12 program. We've had residents participate in that in the past. Another care opportunity is the Les Kelly Clinic in Santa Monica, which is for patients who are uninsured, and you can volunteer as a neurologist in those clinics and provide specialty care to people who do not have access on a regular basis to specialists. So those are just a few of the things that have happened. Our committee, though, is working to expand that menu of opportunities. And so there are many things that are going to come in the future.
Great. I'll add, there were a few questions regarding specifically the advocacy track and the research track, which I'm going to save for our residents who are in those tracks to expand upon in their section. But several questions along the lines of what are you looking for in an applicant? What are your top 3 criteria for getting an interview? How do I strengthen my application? One question about, is research required? Which I will say, no, it's not required. But maybe Dr. Flippin, you can take this one as well. Just yes. What are the core features we're looking for in our applicants?
So if you look at across our residents who are diverse in their interests and backgrounds, the common thread is leadership. And so people who have demonstrated that they are willing to take on their personal passion or challenges and go forward and take it to a different level. We think that the qualities that support that type of leadership are curiosity, wanting to understand deeply what's going on with a patient, with a problem, because with understanding then comes solutions. Compassion for our patients, but also for each other, and for society in general, because that's the money is a motivator for some people, but really for sustained effort and really getting something done and being involved, it's having that compassion to drive you. And then also the commitment to see things through to the end. So neurology, we've grown a lot in our ability to help people with their diseases, but we still don't have a lot of cures. So, but we have to be there with our patients, and that's the part of the commitment that's demonstrated, that we walk with our patients side by side as they go through their Parkinson's disease, as they recover from their strokes. That is the type of commitment that we like to see in an applicant, that they're gonna, just because something's tough, they don't step back from it, they go forward. So those are the core qualities that we're looking for. And that can be demonstrated in a myriad of ways in a given application. So there's no cookie cutter, there's no template. Adrienne's a dancer. She's a she's a scholar of literature. uh, extremely smart. But if you look at her class, there were people who were very different from her, but they all shared the passion for neurology, and they all were sought to be leaders and make a difference. And so that's the best way I can explain a UCLA neurology resident.
Great. Dr. Bordelon, I'll give this next question to you. So the question is pertaining to feedback. So it's saying, aside from the checking the boxes of the ACGME, in what ways do we provide feedback to our residents?
Sure. Feedback has been very important along the way, and we've revised this over time. And one thing that has been adopted recently is Feedback Fridays. So we emphasize this as part of routine formative feedback, so that the faculty are giving feedback to the residents are giving feedback to each other, and to the medical students. And we really try to instill this all along the way, because this is how we, one, become better neurologists, better physicians, but we also take on that educator role. And as residents move through the system, they are responsible for that feedback too. So we think it's incredibly important to have sort of in the moment that formative feedback and those discussions that really help to guide continued progress. In addition, there are evaluations and written evaluations that are collected, and then this is discussed in semi-annual meetings, so that in the larger picture, we make sure that residents are making the progress that they need to make. But it's something that, again, is really a core part of the progress during the residency. But I think now maybe we can stop here and shift over to our resident panel. And we'll lead off with our chief residents who are here on the call. And we have residents who are here from the PGY3 and PGY4 years, others that wanted to come but couldn't make it on the call. But like I said, you'll be seeing them in future events. So I'll introduce the residents here. So the chief residents this year are Shuvra Roy and Tim Ryan. And we also have residents on the call, Sean Love, Wes Carr, and Brittany Young. So I'll hand it over to you guys.
Okay, thanks, Dr. Bordelon. And thank you, Dr. Flippin, Dr. Carmichael, Dr. Keener. Welcome, everyone. Thank you for joining us on, for most of you, a late night to learn about the residency. And we're thrilled that you're here to join us. You guys have been asking some amazing questions. I've been blown away, so please keep them coming. We are going to try to do our intros really quickly so we can answer as many of your questions as possible. Briefly, I am one of the chief residents here. I'm a PGY4. I apologize if there's any background noise, but I came to UCLA from Ohio with no real ties to the area. And the reason for that is frankly because UCLA was the one program that checked every single thing off that I was looking for, in terms of, as Dr. Carmichael mentioned, being a large and diverse program, not just with, the faculty, but, the residents that they brought in terms of diversity of interest, in terms of diversity of background, as well as just the sheer number of opportunities that are here, and continue to be here, in both a structured and an unstructured way. My interests that I'm really pretty active in, I think right now are, advocacy, as Dr. Flippin mentioned. One thing he I think was underselling was his ability to be a sponsor for you. So, Dr. Flippin has gotten me fairly involved with AAN and really amazing opportunities with leadership there, really over the course of the last year or so. I am also on the Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion Committee, doing a lot of work with, I think we already do a pretty good job, but continuing to expand the care we provide to patients of color. And then on top of that, also being involved with medical education. So I think Justine had asked a question about opportunities there. this is one of the few places where during your residency, you can do a medical education, fellowship, and do it concurrently with residency, not have it interfere. And frankly, we have strong representation from our department specifically every single year. I think for the last 3 to 4 years running, we've at least had one person in the program. This year, we have 3. No big deal. I'll let Sean talk a little bit more about it. But, it's been a remarkable experience here at UCLA. I wouldn't trade it for anywhere else. I really hope we can share as much of that as possible with you. So that's enough of me talking. I'll hand it off to Tim, who is one of my co-chiefs.
Hi, my name's Tim Ryan. I'm one of the other co-chiefs, like Shubhra said. Just to relieve some of the stress from people all over the world and all over the country, I come from Maryland, went to the University of Maryland, and UCLA definitely looks at applicants, from all over. I came to UCLA because I was really wowed by, the diverse breadth of clinical experiences across all 3 different hospitals that we primarily rotate at. It was hard to, find any specific subspecialty that was weak here, which, was really impressive to me. And one of the reasons I went into neurology was because I was still very much an open book as a medical student. I wasn't sure, hey, do I want to be a proceduralist or a generalist? Do I want to just do imaging all day as a neuroradiologist? And so having somewhere where you could really follow whatever path you wanted was important to me. Additionally, I know everyone jokes about wherever you go to residency, it's 70 and sunny because you're inside the hospital. But the truth is, when you're really tired at the end of an exhausting day, being able to walk outside into the perfect 60, 70 degree Los Angeles weather is an undeniable benefit to your well-being and to your overall stress level. I know it seems silly, but I've really enjoyed it. And even as a PGY2, you have a lot of opportunities to enjoy it. A lot of opportunities to go hiking. I played, lacrosse in a men's league as a PGY2. And so the, amount of work doesn't ruin the location. Specifically one opportunity that I've been involved in, and Wesley has too, which speaks to some of the unique things that UCLA offers, is the Resident Informatist program, which is a program that UCLA has that helps train residents in being able to use the electronic medical record, specifically EPIC at UCLA, to, work on quality improvement projects and, understand how informatics and hospital management are integrated. So I think that's a unique experience that I don't think, every hospital has to offer. Well, thank you, and I'll pass it off to the next person. Shubhra, did we have a list?
Yeah, why don't we have Wes go next?
Cool, let me unmute myself. I'm trying to answer a lot of chat questions. I'm a PGY4. I'm interested in seizures. I'm doing epilepsy fellowship at Michigan. Not all of us stay. And I'm one of the R25 residents. Which means that I have 6 months of research in my 4th year. In the interest of time, I can talk about a lot of other things offline as well. I also just had a kid 3 weeks ago, and I do the resident informatics. I am interested in a lot of different things and trying to make the most of my residency. I like the flexibility where elective time is really elective time and you can sort of choose what you want to do with it and make the most of it. So that's part of the reason why I came.
Okay, great. Why don't we move to Sean next?
Hi, everyone. I'm Sean Love. I'm also a PGY4 resident. I hail from another corner of the country, representing Tennessee. I'm from a small town not too far from Nashville, where I went to undergrad med school at Vanderbilt. I chose UCLA for myriad reasons. the fierce yet inviting nature of the program. I would say also the quality of the residents in terms of both intellectual prowess and their sociable nature. Very nice people, and also the strength of the fellowships. Pro tip is look where the fellows go, and I think that speaks volumes of the quality of the residents and the training that you get. And last but not least, the cultural, social, lifestyle benefits of living in California. If you're a foodie or a music fan, sans COVID, I would say it's second to none in terms of sheer breadth of options. I'm going to headache and interventional pain, which was not my original path, which I'm happy to speak on later. But very excited about that. I'll be staying at UCLA. And my other academic interests include education, as Shuvra mentioned. I'm one of the people doing the medical education fellowship, which she reiterated is a 1 to 2 year certificate program in curriculum design and development of formal pedagogical skills. There are also much less formal educational development opportunities here at UCLA, such as just leading morning report as a PGY4 2 to 3 times a week, giving lectures to medical students or other specialties even, and then being directly involved in our own program's curriculum design. I can speak to the fact that we've made some significant changes over the past 2 to 3 years since I've been here. And then I also want to take a moment to highlight our program's commitment to diversity. As Dr. Flippin has already mentioned, he's the head of our EDI committee, and I'm involved in that committee as well. I lead the LGBTQ+ Alliance. And finally, like many millennials, I'm a social media addict, so I have to put a plug in for our resident Instagram. If you have an Instagram and you haven't added us already, the handle is at UCLA_neuro.
Awesome. Thank you, Sean. And Brittany, last but certainly not least.
Hello. My name is Brittany. I'm one of the PGY3s. So if there are questions specific to, I guess, the first half of the neurology specific training here, I might be able to field some of those, having just done the PGY2 year. I am a West Coast native and did have some interest in coming back home after I did a bunch of my medical school, graduate school stuff out in the Midwest at Wisconsin. But even within California, there are like 11 or 12 neurology programs. And for me, in interviewing at the time, I really had quite a short list of places that I was willing and wanted to come to out here. Reasons I chose to come here included the fact that I wanted to be part of a bigger class and a bigger kind of residency community, which I thought had benefited the residents that I had kind of interacted with when I met them, and it has definitely benefited me here now. I also am interested clinically and research-wise in neurorehabilitation, which is somewhat less common of a subspecialty for places to offer any experiences with. And here at UCLA, we have the California Rehabilitation Institute just down the road, and some existing ties with that institution, so we can rotate down there, train down there, and there's like fellowship opportunities down there as well. I don't yet belong to any of the special tracks, having just started PGY3 year a couple months back, but there's always time and opportunities, I think, in our program to get involved in the things that interest you and create the opportunities that you want to exist. If there's something that you feel is not quite suited to something that you're really passionate about, the other residents here and the faculty and the staff are actually pretty open to working with people to make things happen if you really are wanting to pursue something specific.
Okay, perfect. All right, thank you, Brittany. So sorry, I'm trying to also answer some questions via typing. How about this? So there was
bring a question to the panel.
Absolutely, Dr. Keener.
Okay. Sean sort of alluded to this a little bit, but somebody asked, what are some of the strengths and weaknesses of the program, and what are some things that you would like to improve, and how is the program sort of process for involving residents in improvement?
I can start with answering that one, and then
I can answer as well.
Okay. So in terms of the strengths, I think, hopefully you're getting a sense just from hearing us talk is, just the sheer breadth of what the resources available here. You can come in with really any area of interest, whether you want to be a pure clinician, whether you want to be an educator, whether you want to be, a dedicated researcher, spend most of your time in your lab. You want to go into, AAN leadership, or you want to do, public policy. You can really do anything here, and not just, go through the motions, but you can really excel. You'll receive plenty of mentorship. I think, I had been asked this by an applicant before, but, I consider, 11 different mentors within the program, each of whom mentor me in different areas that I'm particularly interested in, whether it is my subspecialty, I'm going to neuroimmunology, or, QI, public health, education, you name it. We have plenty of people in that area. In terms of, and then on top of that, obviously you have the city of LA. You have, one thing I wish I had considered more when I was applying was, it's also really important to consider what you're going to do with that time when you're outside the hospital to take care of yourself. And certainly this place does that. One thing that I think was a weakness that I think is actually a lot better was, having a lot of your inpatient rotations in that PGY2 year. And particularly since, it's crazy to even start talking about fellowship since you guys are, applying to residency, but it is something that comes up really quickly. And that timeline is moving up earlier and earlier, it seems like, across all subspecialties at the beginning of your PGY3 year. And so one thing that we've done is implement this 4+2 system. So for every 4 weeks you're on inpatient, you have 2 weeks of dedicated outpatient with no call, so that you have the opportunity to, one, recharge, and also get exposed to the full breadth of outpatient neurology in a lot of our, really strong subspecialty clinics, so that you can make a truly informed decision when it's time for you to pick your subspecialty, or if you want to just stay, hey, I love inpatient neurology and I want to be a neurohospitalist, or general neurologist. You can feel, I think, a lot more confident than you would at other places where you're spending most of your time in the hospital in making that informed decision. So that's, I think, one thing that we've certainly improved upon in the last year.
And I'll briefly answer so we can move on to the next question. I will say one of the strengths and weaknesses, it's like a double-edged sword, is the diversity of clinical environments that we have, and the breadth of clinical problems you get to address and witness. On the other end of that sword is getting to those places. People, they get worried about the LA traffic. It is a thing, but that's why most of our residents live in the heart of those three places. And we can give details about that another time. But I will say, my boyfriend is a resident at another institution down in Orange County, and so I live furthest away of anyone. And I've become an NPR fan and come to not hate the traffic, to be honest with you. So someone who would complain about traffic would be me. And you learn to deal with it. It's the benefits definitely outweigh the risk.
Dr. Keener, were there any other questions that you wanted to pull from? Otherwise, we can kind of just work our way through.
I liked this one, and maybe you can each take a turn. The question is, if you could use one word to describe UCLA neurology, what would it be? So let's see, I bet we'll get 5 different words from each of you. So let's think of one word. Tim, you're first.
Oh man, diverse.
Oh, I'm so mad at you. Can I cheat? Can I use a hyphen? I'm gonna say all inclusive.
Eclectic.
I'm gonna say flexible.
Can I just say like Ankita? Because I feel like if we have the explanation, we have a local celebrity, and by celebrity, just everyone in the program loves my classmate Ankita. And so that would be my word, because it represents how close our residents are in the program.
I wasn't sure where you were going with that, but that was nicely done, Brittany. Okay, anything else? I also feel like that answers the question that, I'm sorry if it's Hannah or Hannah, answers about the atmosphere. I think this is definitely a family environment. Like I said, I didn't come here really knowing many people in LA, but I feel incredibly close with all of my co-residents, and I've never felt as if, hey, kind of alone out here, and it's been wonderful. Does somebody want to answer a question about resident wellness in our program regarding any wellness activities in place or other steps to ensure resident burnout does not occur?
Sure, I think I can speak to that. I don't want to steal Sean's thunder. I think he's the wellness coordinator this year, but as a group, like Shuber said, we are very much a family, and we try to organize activities, whether they're happy hours or going on a hike together or doing other things. At the chief and program level, we're constantly trying to communicate on a one-on-one basis with the residents, especially the PGY2s who are in the new neurology world, and making sure that if anyone is feeling burned out or overwhelmed, that we offer them the resources to overcome their obstacles. I don't know if Sean has more that he wants.
Residency is tough. I'll give you advice instead of saying how we circumvent, because I feel like all of us we could talk about that all day long. Stick true to your passions and stick true to yourself. And coming in with a significant other or even a pet, or keeping your family or your support network close, has definitely helped me throughout this process. And exercise when you can. And thankfully, this program, look, Wes is nodding his head. He's like the king of that. So that's my 2 cents. I also think, because of the especially with the new schedule that we've created for the PGY2s this year, that's the toughest year. And I think that has addressed some of the burnout issues that might have arisen in the past. And having more time for not just yourself, but also to study and recoup, I think that's been beneficial.
I'm a little bit hurt that neither of you mentioned, we just did an LA taco tour with a bunch of the residents this weekend.
I didn't want to brag about it.
I don't know why I put so much work into that if you guys can't even bring it up. Anyways.
It was fantastic.
It was really good.
I can still taste that mezcal.
Right. Okay. I know we're a little late on time, but I actually really liked this question. And I apologize, we can't probably get to all of these questions, but one thing that people I think often are asking is, any advice for applicants, particularly this year, or with interviews or anything about the interview process in general, whether it's drawing from your own experience of what it was like, or I think anything that you think might be helpful for this year. I can maybe offer a couple things. So I think there were a lot of questions that we got, I think, earlier about letters of recommendation. And I think that's something that gets overcomplicated at times. I would encourage you to simply pick the faculty who know you the best. Whether that is somebody from medicine or, general surgery or neurology, that's what we want to know. You'll have your scores, you'll have your tests, which, frankly, we don't use cutoffs or anything other than, did you pass? And I think we want to get a sense of who you are as a person. I mean, I don't want to speak for Dr. Keener and Dr. Flippin, but I think that's, probably the most important thing. And beyond that, I was going to say, I think it's just helpful to, come in with your own questions. We're auditioning for you guys just as much as, you're applying to these programs. And so having a clear sense of what you want out of your program is, I think, going to be the most important thing in terms of deciding, okay, what's the best place for you. I think we feel pretty confident that regardless of what you want to do, we can make that work and help you excel. But having a clear sense of what your own interests are, I think, is particularly important.
Shuvro, can I speak to that?
Absolutely.
So, because I was on another webinar earlier this afternoon, and the same question came up. It's presenting your authentic self, who you are, and knowing what you want. It's truly a buyer's market. The statistics and on the match are that you have to interview 13 candidates for every one position. That's up from 7, I think, 3 years ago. So it's a buyer's market. And so really we don't look at the number of letters. There's one letter that knows you very well and describes your passions and your work ethic and who you are as a person is worth its weight in gold. So it's not a matter of the number of letters. It's the quality of the letter that you get. And again, this is a bi-directional relationship. You want us to like you, but we want you to like us also. So keep that in mind. And I think you never go wrong with presenting your authentic self.
Can I bring another question to the panel?
Of course.
This question is for those of you who entered residency not knowing what subspecialty you wanted to pursue, or for people maybe like Sean who thought they knew and changed their minds. How did you figure that out, and how did the program support you?
That's a big question. So let me answer the second part of the question first. I felt when I did make that decision to change, we have a mentoring program for all of our residents with faculty that follow you from the PGY2 year through the PGY4 year. And mine is Dr. Sharma, who was involved in my initial clinical interest of stroke and interventional neuroradiology, which I'm still very interested in it. And if you're interested in stroke, there's no better place in the country to go to. And so she was very supportive in my altering my career path, and then also the fellowship program themselves and the leadership. I've sat down with Dr. Flippin a couple of times. I've also talked to Dr. Keener, and no sense of judgment whatsoever. And then also not only no judgment, but also helpful tips in getting me through that process and connecting me. I think Shuvro mentioned earlier that Dr. Flippin is a strong advocate for the residents, and he's actually helping me right now with the process of interviewing for a possible second fellowship through an anesthesia-based pain program. So no support is not a problem here as far as pursuing your academic and clinical interests. And then how I changed is a more personal story. I doubt you know all the details of that. But it just came down to lifestyle choices ultimately. And the fact that our headache program is one of the strongest in the country, between Dr. Flippin, who's involved, but also Dr. Goadsby, who's new, and also Dr. Andy Charles.
I came in fairly undifferentiated, not really, knowing what I wanted to do. And I decided, I think partially, partway towards the end of my PGY2 year, that I wanted to do neuroimmunology. And, one thing I was a little bit nervous about that, I didn't need to be nervous about was, I wanted to apply broadly for fellowship. And, since we keep so many of our residents, I wasn't sure how that would be taken. And, I remember sitting down with Dr. Flippin. He was extremely helpful. What my mentor, I didn't even know until well after the fact, now that I'm applying for, grants, that she had called different programs all around the country to basically say, you don't, accept anyone until you interview him. And, after you interview him, then you can make your decision, but you don't take anyone until you interview him. And so I'll be going to Hopkins for my fellowship. And, as Dr. Flippin said, you can kind of go from here, go anywhere you want. You're going to be extremely competitive. So, as Sean said, had a lot of support.
I think our sushi dinners had a lot of mutual support as well going on there.
Exactly.
Or was it the sake?
Right. Yeah. Hey, Wes, are you able to answer a question about asking about housing in LA for a family with young children?
Oh, yeah.
I can't imagine why you might be the choice for
that. There's also an anonymous question where everyone got asked how much they pay for rent. I will give my particular example. I live in Sherman Oaks because I have 2 kids. I mentioned that I had one's 3 months old. I live there because it's much cheaper to buy a 2-bedroom apartment with 2 parking spaces. And it's cheaper to live over there. Most other people live closer to UCLA and Westwood. So you sort of make your choices based on finances. If you want to rent, if you want to buy. We bought a condo. I got help from my parents. So my mortgage is like a reasonable rate with all of our things. So I don't feel like I'm cutting particular costs. I live frugally because I have 2 kids, but otherwise, yeah, I'm not too worried with our salary. The housing stipend is very nice. It makes things much more comfortable. Pay down my mortgage. I think that's answering that question. We have 2 other residents that also have kids and had kids. Marie, who's a PGY3, just had a kid during PGY2 year. And each of them has a different location where they live based on their individual situation and what their significant other does. My wife's a stay-at-home mom, so yes, that's possible in a resident salary.
Maybe you guys can also speak to how we as a program coped with the COVID pandemic. What was that like for you guys? And sort of, how good are you at Zoom now? No. So the question is, how were daily practices affected by COVID-19? So maybe you can speak to what that was like here at UCLA.
So I was a senior resident on the general neurology service at UCLA kind of during our peak, our first peak. I think the department did a great job checking in with residents, at a much more frequent basis than, maybe in the past, like on a daily basis. We were getting emails and, meetings on a weekly basis with all the updates. We rapidly, changed kind of the inpatient service, making sure that only really essential residents on essential rotations were, in the hospital being exposed. Dr. Flippin was very kind and came around with kind of a goodie bag of emergency COVID supplies like goggles and glasses and an N95, just in case we ever felt like we were in an environment where we couldn't get supplies. Luckily, I never felt that way. We were lucky in our clinical environments to have, whatever protective gear that we needed. And I think it was an opportunity for us to innovate. We tried to experiment with using iPads for, video visits. A lot of publications were written during that period. One of our stroke fellows wrote something about, running a stroke code in a COVID positive patient. And I think it's really actually been very nice as residents to get much more involved in teleneurology, because teleneurology is, part of all of our future careers, even post-COVID. It's a way to, spread neurology to rural areas and underserved communities. So it definitely gave us the opportunity to get involved in that and learn kind of the skills on running those visits.
Yeah, I'm going to also loop in how we responded to, what's kind of become the second civil rights movement. So briefly, with COVID, none of us were pulled onto medicine. None of us were pulled onto emergency medicine. I think we responded quickly. So two of my best friends are frontline, EM, IM at, let's just say, extremely well-known East Coast programs. And I was worried about how things would go down here after hearing how they were treated by their institutions, and we had no issues. We instituted a deep jeopardy system in case anyone were to be infected, which we didn't even need to really use, thankfully, because we were thankfully quite well protected by our faculty. At all of you, for example, it became a thing, only attendings were going to see COVID positive patients. Our attendings really supported us in trying to push for a lot of inpatient teleneurology as needed for select patients to try to minimize exposure as much as possible. Regarding, how we responded to, many of the killings of Black men and women in the community, we changed our grand rounds completely to basically start facilitating Department of Neurology listening sessions, to facilitate conversations on what we can do as a department to one, better care for patients from communities of color, and also just what we need to do as healthcare advocates and how we can get involved. Those are conversations that have continued, for 4 or 5 months now, and are happening, regularly across the department. So I'm pretty proud of the way we met those moments, because, I think those are obviously not things that your typical department is prepared to deal with, but I think we did a good job.
All right. A group of questions here along the lines of what group activities do you guys fondly remember over the past few years, not necessarily clinical or work related? And then somebody else also asked about our Lake Arrowhead retreat and any fond memories of that event. Keep it clean.
I think speaking to a fond memory, obviously the taco tour, since Shuvro needs that positive reinforcement. But, in the past, even as a PGY2, with some of my fellow PGY2s, we rented an Airbnb up in Big Bear, which is a mountainous area outside of Los Angeles, and had a relaxing weekend then, which was a lot of fun. Speaking to retreat, there's, a yearly tradition where consults for silly reasons are called to the fellows who are covering the service. Just some friendly pranks, and there's always one or two that are, amusing to hear.
I especially appreciate one of the Lake Arrowhead traditions of building a giant pager that will have a stupid page on it, and it's sort of like a piñata. So the PGY2s take turns be able to hit it. I believe I did a back kick into it my year, and candy comes out.
I think it's worth pointing out that I didn't go to Lake Arrowhead because for COVID reasons, we couldn't gather just this past year. But even though we couldn't physically go to retreat, we still, as a program, all got on Zoom and prank called the fellows. Please don't tell our fellows. It's a secret, and it's a surprise every year.
I was gonna say anytime Brittany bakes, it's always, Brittany's an incredible baker, and you guys really should ask her questions about that. I will say, look, I don't think I'm allowed to say a whole lot about retreat, but I will say what was really surprising that night was to find out that Dr. Keener can break dance, and I would really want to see that happen again before I graduate. So, but otherwise, we do a ton of stuff together. So it's like kind of, as Sean briefly mentioned, like there's a group of us that like get sushi all the time. We go I think somebody asked about some place called Griddle's Cafe or whatever that is. The problem with asking about a specific food place in LA is I guarantee, it's probably, if you're here, it's probably the best food city you're going to live in. And there's just too many places to, really hit them all. That taco tour we were talking about, we had planned out, in 8 or 9 spots, and we made it to like 5. So, yeah, it's there. We do a lot together.
Great. Well, I think maybe we'll wrap things up. I'll invite the faculty to turn their cameras back on, and maybe we can just wrap up and say goodbye to everyone. And I'm sorry if we didn't get to your questions. We tried to get to as many as possible, but we will keep track of the Q&A and try to send updates as well.
I showed briefly the picture, Wes, of the pager, piñata pager, so everybody got a look at that. And I'll show just a slide just to sum up with our information again while Dr. Flippin says a couple of words. Sorry.
Sorry. I'm glad that I want to say thank you for you all hanging out in with us and help allowing us to share with you all the wonderful things that are going on here at UCLA Neurology. This is just the first of many touch points that'll be available to you. So please keep an eye on our website where announcements will be coming out about subsequent programs. There'll be plenty of opportunities for you to talk to more of our residents, even though I think they all did an excellent job today sharing what's fun about our program and the things that have helped them start to shape their careers. And that's really what we're here for. We're here to help shape careers. And fortunately, we can also have great relationships along the way. So with that, have a great evening. We look forward to hearing more from all of you in the not too distant future, and be safe.